bronze accents,
black wheels,
better exhaust,
Corolla,
Apex? What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another car review here on the driveway. And first off, before this video gets started, I do want to apologize for the sound of my voice because unfortunately, as of last night, I lost my voice entirely. The weather here has been about as bipolar as a high school teenager, and unfortunately, my body just couldn't adjust to the temperature changes so quickly. Therefore, my voice decided to go bye-bye, and I basically was worried that I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys today, but I've managed to rescue it just enough to be able to present to you all the 2022 Toyota Corolla Apex. Now, Toyota claims that this is supposed to be the hottest and most fun to drive version of the Corolla that they've ever made. But I'd beg to differ on that, starting off with the fact that this is an over $30,000 car as it sits, which honestly is a bit much. When I think of a Corolla, I think of affordable, economical, and somewhat fun to drive transportation, not a $30,000 economy car. But Toyota says differently, so I'm here to say what's so different. And you might be asking the same. Well, to answer that, let's hit the start button, hit the road, let's talk about that. Good morning, everybody. It's just a foggy drive to work this morning through Houston in my daily driver 4-cylinder economy car. And I don't think that's the best way to start off this review, but that's kind of how I've been feeling over the past week that I've been driving this car. Quite frankly, even though the Apex is supposedly hotter than ever, this car just doesn't drive like anything else other than a normal CVT transmission Corolla. And speaking of, we do have the CVT in this car, and that, I think, absolutely ruins the Apex for an enthusiast like myself. Now, hope is not lost, because even though this is based on the XSE, this one I'm driving here, you can still get the Apex package on the Corolla SE, and that offers a 6-speed manual transmission with the intelligent rev match. Now, regardless of which trim level you go with, you're gonna get the same engine. A 2-liter dynamic force directed port fuel injected 4-cylinder, making a whopping 169 horsepower, 151 foot-pounds of torque. It's front-wheel drive, and with the CVT, you're looking at 31 in the city, 38 on the highway, which is pretty respectable for a small car like this. I was expecting it to maybe drop a little bit, and it will if you get the manual. I think it's around 28 in the city, about 35 on the highway, but if you get the CVT, obviously you have an infinite number of gear ratios. You get the idea. Now, if you want to have a little fun with this car, there is a sport mode down here, and you can also click it over into manual. You have 10 selectable manual ratios to pick from, and if you knock it down a couple cogs, it sounds all right. It certainly doesn't get you anywhere very fast, that's for sure. Now, as much as one might dog this car for its lack of straight line performance, the Apex does have one saving grace, and it all has to do with that Apex name. It is the handling of this thing. They've stiffened the front suspension by 47% and 33% in the rear, and given it a whole new sport suspension setup overall. And what that equates to is a much more connected feeling to this car. Not to mention, the ride is, as you can see, a good bit firmer, but overall, the steering actually feels like it is connected to the front wheels. It doesn't feel like there's a little itty-bitty electronic robot kind of interfering between the steering wheel and the front wheels itself. I mean, yeah, it's got an electric power steering system. Whoop-de-doo. Every car nowadays has the same thing. But what I'm saying is that it feels much more involving to drive. The only thing, I go right back to it, I wish I had the manual transmission in this car. I think with the steering in it, the way it rides, the way it drives, and just the way it feels to kind of sit in here with this crazy good visibility. I feel like I'm staring out of an aircraft windshield in here. I think that is where this car would really excel. But handling wise, I can't fault this thing. It is very involving to drive, despite the fact that it's still a Toyota Corolla. Now let's switch gears for a second. Let's say you're just the regular average Joe. You're looking for a regular Corolla that can get you back and forth to work. It'll get 35 to 40 miles per gallon all day long, and it's just a sensible daily driver. Do you pick the Apex and have a little bit more fun, or do you just settle for something like an SE, an XLE, or even the XSE? For me, I personally would pick just a regular Corolla. Aside from the better handling in the Apex, honestly, I don't want to be driving to work with my spine slowly being turned to dust by a slightly better handling system and a much firmer suspension. I really think a regular Corolla is a slightly better option, especially if you're a little bit more price conscious, like 99% of everybody else. That said, if you are looking for exclusivity, the Apex still has that up its sleeve, as only 6,000 of these will be made over the course of the entire year. Now, I know I said it's not so much a performance car, however, it certainly looks like a performance car. So we're headed back to our favorite little spot to go check out how sporty this thing really is in the details. Now, if you're going to create a hot version of what is otherwise an ordinary commuter slash economy car, you need to start with a good design platform. And Toyota has done just that. As I said, this car is based on the SE and XSE trims. That's the only way you can get the Corolla Apex Edition. But what makes it more unique, aside from the fact that it looks very aggressive, is the fact that Toyota only offers this car in 3 distinct colors. The one here is, quite frankly, the most monochromatic, the black sand pearl. You can also get it in other colors like cement paired with a black sand roof, which I think would look so much better on this car, and I kind of want to see one in another color besides black. But all that being said, you just start here at the front. This thing looks properly angry. The headlights are extremely angular, just like the normal Corolla sedan, and also just like that car, they are full LED everything. You've got the J-shaped LED daytime running lights, the LED high and low beams, and LED turn signals. LED fog lights are located down below here in the lower bumper, although they only come on when the headlights are on completely, otherwise you can't turn them on separately. You notice the bronze accents here as well. That's kind of a nice touch. They run all the way along the front bumper, down the sides, and across the rear. And also you have the little lower lip extension as well, paired with a black sport mesh grille in the middle. And of course, behind this entire bumper here, we have all the sensors for a pretty basic edition of the Toyota Safety Sense system. Things like the lane departure warning, the dynamic radar cruise control, and forward collision warning. Now, as anyone would guess, the Corolla is not a very big car. As a matter of fact, on paper, this car is about 10 inches exactly longer than a Toyota GR Supra. So it's definitely not a big car. If you're looking for that, you might as well be looking at a Camry XSE instead of this. However, it's not exactly a bad-looking car from the side. It sits just over half an inch lower than a normal Corolla XSE, again, boiling it down to the Sport Tune suspension that Toyota has specifically installed on the Apex model. Now, speaking of specifically installed, you have to take a look at these. The 18-inch flow-formed aluminum alloy wheels, of course, painted truly in gloss black. They are wrapped in 225 40-section summer tires provided by Dunlop, and they look amazing. But I said with the black sand pearl, they kind of look a little monochromatic. If this was in a completely different color, I think they would look even better. But all the same, they provide a very nice accent in comparison to the standard wheels you would get on either an SE or XSE. We've got 4-wheel ventilated disc brakes all the way around. Again, the Sport Tune suspension up front, and you can kind of see that it does sit a little bit lower, as this tire does sit a little bit closer to the fender. Now for 30 grand and being a Corolla, the options list down the side isn't the biggest in the world, but it's pretty standardized stuff. But you do get some cool things like these little nodules that stick out, in this case right in front of the front 3/4 window. Those are little air deflectors. Toyota seems to be pasting them all over all of their cars. Basically, it's there just in case you pass, say, a bigger vehicle going the other way, meaning that you aren't blown into the next lane over. On this car, we do also have standardized options like the body colored side view mirrors with the applicable LED turn signals. I think they're body colored on pretty much every Corolla except the base. These ones do have blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert, as you would expect. And not only do you have a small size sunroof up top, power tilting and sliding, and also more of the bronze accents on the side with a nice little lip there just in front of the back doors, but you also get the standard smart key access. Now this comes on all Apex trims, both SE and XSE, and it works like all the rest. You got lock, unlock, trunk, panic. You've got the releasable key blade out of the bottom, and if you want to open or lock the vehicle, just put the key in your pocket. It's locked right at the moment. Just grab the handle as normal. You can open the door, or if you want to lock it back, there's a little ridge on the front of the handle. Now, just like everywhere else on this car, you look at it from the back and it looks like every single other Corolla SE or XSE on the road. Although the Apex does give it a couple of little extra goodies, it's nothing out of the ordinary. Things like the taillights, they're almost all LED except for the turn signals. Those remain incandescent. And in addition to that monochromatic gripe that I was talking about, you do have full blacked out badges. Everything from the Toyota badge to the new Apex badge down here on the trunk lid, they're all blacked out. And again, if this car was in a lighter color like the cement and it still had those black badges on there, I think it would look a lot smarter. But if you look at it from, say, 10 feet away, it almost looks like they just took all the badges off of it. You do have the black lip spoiler on the trunk. That's standard on all Corolla Apex models. Same thing with like the backup camera that's hidden here right above the license plate. There's no park assist. For 30 grand, you would expect it, but unfortunately this is still an economy car, so not expecting too much here, especially things down below. You have the nice black diffuser, again, adds a little more aggression. Same with the bronze accent across the top, but most uniquely would be the exhaust. It's nothing too aftermarket sounding. Of course, now it has a single tip. The normal Corolla has a twin tip single outlet, but this one doesn't sound bad, but it's not ricerish either. Now, despite the Corolla's small stature, it is still quite the practical vehicle as well. To open the trunk, you can either use the latch underneath, or you can simply use the key. And once you open it up, you realize that although the trunk lid is quite small, the opening and space you have inside is actually quite acceptable. You're looking at about 13.2 cubic feet of space in the back. Of course, the rear seats do fold down, so you've got a 60-40 split there in the rear. And you can kind of tell that it is a bit bigger than it would suggest, because you look through the rear window and you've got that giant shelf hidden here right behind the rear seat. So not at all bad when it comes to storing stuff in here. Now, as much as I wish I could say the rest of this car is just as special as what you've seen thus far, unfortunately, when it comes to the inside, it's exactly the same as a regular Corolla XSE. About the only thing that makes it look special are these very unique looking seats. Now, granted, I haven't been in a regular Corolla XSE, but they do look a little bit more special compared to a normal one. Really what makes them special is the black Softex material paired with the bronze stitching, sort of to match the outside of the car. Now, in the XSE, you do have a power driver's seat with lumbar control, recline. You can raise the front of the seat up and your power distance, but really that's about where the specialties stop, because as you can see, design wise and pretty much technology wise, it's exactly the same as your mom's Corolla you've probably got in the garage. Now, considering how special Toyota makes the Apex out to be, and also keeping that $30,000 price tag in mind, this car's interior is extremely simple. There is really not a whole lot of anything special in here, and really not a whole lot of buttons to talk about either. I mean, you just look at the steering wheel. First of all, it's leather wrapped as you would expect, and it has all the same switch gear as pretty much every other Toyota product out there. All your radio, seek, track, mode, volume controls, and voice recognition along the bottom. Your adaptive adaptive cruise control, distance sensor and lane departure warning on the right, the arrow pad and OK button that control the thin film transistor display up there in the center, which surprisingly, as before, is just comprised of your speedometer and central information center. Your tachometer, all the warning lights, your fuel gauge, and your engine temperature are all analog. So really, again, nothing special there. And about the only thing interesting is that when you put this car in sport mode, the center gauge will light up red, but everything else stays blue. It's a very kind of underwhelming and sort of underthought little feature, but it's something I kind of wish if you push a sport button, you want everything to turn one color, not have 3 different colors going on all at the same time. In keeping on the theme of simple, you have a manual tilt and telescope steering column with the latch right here, just to the left of the column itself. And in typical Toyota fashion, there is a slew of blank buttons over here. And the only one that we have in this car is the auto high beam assist right next to your instrumentation dimming. I still have no idea why Toyota puts all these blank buttons here. I wish they would just take them away and just have one simple little button area, but instead they put all these blank little spaces like you would find on any other Corolla. Speaking of, we also have things like the automatic headlights on the indicator stalk up here, something I forgot to mention earlier. Same with the paddles. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this car is the CVT transmission. If this one had the 6-speed, of course, those would go away. From a technology standpoint, the Corolla really isn't bad, but it's not the greatest system that I've ever used in the world. First of all, in this one, we have the 8-inch touchscreen display. It comes with the latest Toyota Entune app suite, and of course, it comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Pretty basic stuff, right? But it doesn't get my thumbs up seal of approval, because for things like map, you want a navigation? Well, it's not installed on this one. Come on, Toyota, over 30 grand for a limited edition Corolla, and you don't even give me navigation? It's a little bit of a thumbs down for me. Speaking of all the buttons on the side, we have all the basics. Home, which is this menu right here. We have the menu, which allows you to toggle between basically everything you've got in the tabs over here. Audio, so your Bluetooth media streaming and so on. The map, which that doesn't exist. Seek, track, you've got the Bluetooth telephone, and of course the Entune app suite as well. You also do have the backup camera, as is rudimentary on pretty much every vehicle nowadays. You do of course have the guidance lines, which are nice, but I mean, no park assist, so I mean, I really don't see the point of them. You kind of just need the camera to measure out how far away you are from something, although I've noticed with a lot of backup cameras there is a little bit of a delay in the system nonetheless. Now, if you're someone like me who's not just technologically inclined but also enjoys their music, well, I don't know how you would feel about the sound system in this car. It's only got 6 speakers, it's made by Toyota themselves, it's not manufactured by any special sort of brand like the JBL audio system you might find in some other high-end Toyota products, but to be fair, for only 6 speakers, it's actually not half bad. So what I'll do is just press the power button and let you see what you think. Now, if you want to continue ranting and raving about your annoyances, then take a look down here, because not only do we have a significant amount of gloss black trim, as is the case throughout a good bit of the interior, like across the dash and part of the door panels, we have a single zone climate control system. I was expecting a dual zone, maybe something a little more advanced, but no. We have a fan speed on the right, temperature control on the left with an automatic function, and thin itty bitty little buttons here on the bottom for things like turning the AC off, front rear defrost, which way you want the air pointed, your economy mode for heating and cooling, air recycling, and just the main air conditioning. If you're expecting any more niceties aside from the 8-inch screen and perhaps the limp-wristed climate control, take a look down here on the front. First of all, no wireless charger or anything like that, but it is a great place to store your phone, or if you're kind of dumb and lightheaded like me, you sort of lose it a little bit. I've tended to get out of the car with my phone sitting up here, and I completely forget to grab it. Unless it's attached to the USB, which, by the way, that USB is in the most bizarre place I have ever seen it in my life. Normally, I would expect it maybe to be like here or maybe up in here, but no, they've stuck it in a random place right next to the glove box up under the dash. You do have 2-stage heated seats, though, so that's at least nice, at least for my back after a long day of working. But you come down here and you're greeted with what I can only describe as still my least favorite transmission of them all, the CVT transmission. Everything else, aside from the shifter, which also does have the manual mode, as I mentioned earlier, the only other things you get are the auto brake hold, which I've made plenty of use of, and the electronic parking brake. Aside from the trunk and glove box, the storage in the Corolla is decent. That's really the least I can say about it. You have two decently sized cup holders here, plenty big enough for, say, a large drink from your local fast food or gas station, and also a pretty decent place to store your phone. I could just grab mine, and if you have no other use for the cup holders, say for your drinking purposes, you could just stick your phone in there. At least it makes it easier to find when you go to get out of the car. But either way, aside from the cup holders, you do have a decent size center console here. It's small. It's a nice little armrest if you want to use it that way. You do have one extra USB-C in here, along with one 12-volt, 120-watt outlet. But I mean, as you can see, I've got my wallet, my keys, my vape juice, which I don't vape in these cars, by the way. I've had several people ask me about that. But I mean, it's got enough in there in case you actually need some storage. But if you're looking for bigger items, you might as well put them in the trunk. Now let's say you're looking to take a couple more passengers along with you for a drive in your Corolla. Open the back door and, oh dear, that doesn't look like a very big space back there to me, especially for someone of my height. In case I haven't made it clear, I'm over 6 feet tall. But if you are looking for more space, you do have the tabs for the 60/40 rear seat folding. So of course that does increase the trunk space. You've got a nice little armrest right here with a couple of decent sized cup holders. But if I want to squeeze in here, and keeping in mind that seat's where I would be driving it, yeah, I wouldn't say it's great. I mean, my knees are right against the driver's back, and I don't think they would appreciate that very much. And I can actually attest to this because I actually rented a newer Corolla SE just like this in Florida when I went down there recently, and having all three of my other family members plus my girlfriend in the front, yeah, it was a pretty cramped situation in here, to say the least. So if you're looking for space in the back seat, well, you're better off with a Camry. And with all that being said, this now wraps up our review and drive of the 2022 Toyota Corolla XSE Apex Edition. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my feelings for this car are still a good size mixed bag. First of all, on one hand, it's a great looking little car. It's very spirited to drive when you want it to, but that lacking in performance and sort of lacking of options for a sizable price tag doesn't exactly put it at the top of my list when someone like myself would go looking for a small compact car like this. However, the exclusivity factor is still there because, as I said, only 6,000 of these will be made for 2022, so it does give you a little bit of bragging rights that you have something more special than your neighbor's Corolla SE. But in that note, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below because trust me, it does benefit the both of us in the end. At the end of the day, though, my thanks goes right back to Toyota USA, i.e. Gulf States Toyota, for allowing us access to another one of their fun-to-drive cars for a whole week of driving around. But at the end of it, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.